conversation rigid though? Was it? I mean, because we talked about earlier. Are you laughing when you get to the end of this situation that you had? You understand what I'm saying?
Now,
okay,
9 years, but in the beginning, oh my God, I was mad. So I'm not laughing. It's not funny, but to him, it's like it ain't that deep. But it is that deep to me, you know.
Got you. Wow.
So in the beginning, no, it was not funny.
So how did you, Pastor Henry, get to me? Because and I think that's another issue as couples. Like to us, you know, for women, we're like, look, this is really bothering me, and you like it ain't that deep. Like you have to get to a place where you acknowledge that for her, it is that deep. And how do I acknowledge that and say I see you and I hear you? How do you get to that point? Because I'm sure she wasn't the only one that had to learn how to give. You had to learn how to respond to her as well. So, as a man, when do you get to the point to say, you know what? Because sometimes men can be dismissive. So, when do you get to the point where you say, you know what? No, I see you. I understand that it is that deep for you, and we're going to work through this.
Well, for those individuals that know me, they would tell you, you know, that I'm, you know, quite the funny guy. Like I like to make moments light and laugh, and I had to realize that when dealing with Joy in those situations, it wasn't time to laugh, you know, because I realized that would kind of make it worse. And you're absolutely right. That was one of the things, you know, that I had to take ownership to saying, man, it's not that deep. But I can't, because it's not that deep to me doesn't mean it's not that deep to you. And so this is what I learned how to start doing, not saying anything, just listen, because my silence can't be misquoted. And so I'm listening now, and now as I'm listening now, then what I would do is after I would listen, whether she's saying it in a calm voice or like a roaring lion, you know, I would repeat back what she said. Now, okay, I heard you said this, that, and the other. Did I hear you correctly? And once I started doing that, gradually we went from the Lion King to Simba over time. Still the lion in there, but, you know, but now here's the thing. And I say that, you know, funny, but just being able to just, like I said, spend time and hear what your spouse is saying.
Yeah. Did you have something you want to say? Okay.
Nothing else?
Suzette, Daniel, did you want to address that?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, so
that's
we got
normal. So that's
That's fine.
Okay, so we have a pivotal question here. Of course, another very important one to some. Should your spouse have friends of opposite sex? If so, what are the boundaries? What are the boundaries?
Yeah, because that was one of my questions, and I asked that question because a lot of times we talk to everybody but our spouses about what's going on, and so your friends of the opposite sex know more about what your husband did to you or vice versa, and it just opens up the door for things that can happen that should not happen. So that was my question of, you know, do you have, and then from the flip side of it too, like before you get married, you may be really good friends with somebody of the opposite sex. Like, you know, me and CJ are best friends. And so I have to be conscious, like when I get married, I'm going to have to, you know, how do I handle the balance of this is my husband, but this is also my male best friend who probably knows just as much about me as my husband will. So how do you balance that, that for those friendships?
I can tell. Well, first off, I would like to say one thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be a person of the opposite sex. It could be a male friend of yours that could be your worst enemy. You don't even realize it. So you really have to watch those as well. The other thing is keep your business between you and your spouse. It's no one else's business but yours and your spouse.
Man, can you say that again?
Yes, between you and your spouse. It doesn't matter. You know, don't take it outside the house. Keep it inside the house. Keep it amongst yourselves. When you take it outside the house, that's when problems really start.
That's good. That's good. Keep your business to yourself. Good. That's serious.
You know, I think to me one of the greatest examples and illustration of a couple coming together and being married. And you know, I kind of use the analogy of two people meeting at an airport terminal. You guys are both going on the same destination, but you brought bags with you and I brought bags with me, and we got to decide which bags we take on this plane with us to our destination, and what bags we need to discard. Now you can carry them, but of course if you go to the airport, you'll find out every bag you carry, there's an additional cost to this. And so sometimes we got to think what's in those bags. You know, we my thing is I don't have a problem with my wife having friends of the opposite sex, but they got to be mutual friends. They got to be my friends too, and vice versa. I don't have any female friends that my wife doesn't know. You know, and that's just kind of how we work in our house. I mean, everybody does differently, but you know, I don't have any friends that she doesn't know of. And that, as Brother Daniel said, what takes place in our house is just what takes place in our house. You know, I don't discuss that with anybody, not even my own family members. That's just between us.
Okay, that's good.
I find that, like he said, keeping what goes on in your marriage, because outside people are not so forgiving. They will find every reason to tell you what didn't they remember stuff you don't even remember.
That's true.
And you know, so they'll keep stuff brewing. They'll keep stuff rehashing and having you go back to old situations when you and your husband have healed from that. You know, so I feel like once you get married, that your spouse should be your friend. You know, y'all should share those moments. Everything y'all do, y'all should do together. And if there is a person of the opposite sex that is your friend, then there should be mutuality. You know, we should all be able to hang out together. Like, I should have your number. You should have my number. We should all be able to call, text, and not have any issues.
I think it's go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that I agree. As far as outside friends of the opposite sex, we don't do that. Like, with him being in the ministry at our mosque, he does have relationships with so many people, and he may meet a sister that, you know, is interested in the teachings. However, he'll pass her off to me. He's not going to, you know, text or have a conversation with her outside of anything that's not appropriate. So we're not doing outside friends, and it's not from a stance of being insecure or anything like that. It's just that sometimes people can, it can get twisted. It can get twisted, and it can get messy, because you may think that, oh, yeah, we're just friends, but sister she may have other intentions. Someone may have other intentions along the line. Right. And I'm not saying that it can't work. It's just not what we're doing.
And I was going to add something, too, about that. Don't go ahead. Go ahead, brother.
Let me add something.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I'm in 100% agreement with my wife, because that's how we function. And it's almost as if I'm always striving to outdo my former self. So I know how I was outside of the nation. So I'm always competing against that person. And so I don't even find it safe to have friends, quote unquote, friends of the opposite sex. You know, whenever we're functioning with anyone, the language we use is brother and sister. And so I may look at you, you're my sister. I'm not looking at you any other way, but as my wife was stating, which women have better intuition than we do. My wife she may ask me, you didn't see how the person was looking at you, or, you know, so I'm looking at it from, come on, y'all know. But yet, you know, so as brothers specifically, and I know personally that whenever someone of the opposite sex can interact with me, or from the standpoint of a man striving to interact with my wife, they can become attracted to what it is that we're striving to represent. It has nothing to do with, you know, I don't think I'm all that, but someone may find what I represent. All that. And so it becomes a fantasy of striving to get what the person represents, and the person just happens to be the person represented. So yeah, it's like, you know, it's playing with fire or playing Russian roulette. It's not worth it. So
the only thing I was going to add too is, with the different principles that we have established in the relationships, our friends should support that. It shouldn't be a thing where you have these friends, these random friends, and they just doing low key stuff, trying to be slick, whatnot. They should understand what your institution of keeping your bond together is. So if you have an understanding with your wife, with your husband, you don't have friends, or maybe you have this open relationship, whatever that is, at the end of the day, it needs to be respected. I think it needs to be respected.
So
And I think it is respected. I think so for example, when you got married, you know, it was a difficult for me because I'm like, when he, you know, was like, we didn't talk as often. It was hard for me because I'm like, but this is my brother. Like, this is my male best friend. This is the person who, you know, we didn't been through deaths together and all, you know. So when that line was, or that wall was put up, it was hard for me to understand because I'm like, well, I was here first. Not that I wanted to be her, you know, be his wife, but I was like, you know, I've been here. I've seen you at your low and vice versa. And now you telling me that, you know, we can't at least maintain some line of communication.
Right.
I'm not saying that, you know, I respect the fact that you have a wife, but from the flip side, I'm just going to keep it real. It's hard when you have when you've been really close to somebody and then they move on and get married. Now you got to kind of rearrange your whole world because the person who you confided in and has been your backbone and vice versa now has a new chapter that they have to. And I get it. So I'm just saying from a woman's perspective, not that we have ill intentions because there was no intentions. This was like my brother. So it was like a death to me. Like, okay, I'm losing my brother.
I feel like this question kind of connects with one of the previous questions you asked us about assumptions. And I think what, like Brother Thomas said, I think you have to shun the very appearance of evil. And so, you know, I'm a firm believer that, you know, what you don't teach, you tolerate. And so even I have friends, pastor friends that my wife and I, we went on vacation with, like, we are all mutual friends. But guess what? I still don't text their wives. And I just don't do that. And even though I can, I don't do it because, again, like he said, I just don't want to I don't want that kind of assumption. I don't want that kind of connotation to be associated. So, again, with us, you know, if she has male friends, I should know about every last one of them, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I agree. Did you want to say anything else, Susan?
No.
Okay. So we're going to move on to the next question. What are some ways to show your spouse that you appreciate him or her? How do you show your spouse? Because a lot of times men feel like, I ain't appreciate you. Don't appreciate what I do around this house. I pay all the bills and blah, blah, blah. But you don't appreciate me. So, men, husbands.
Why you got the mic?
Why you have the mic. And then I'm going to let the wives say it. Husbands, how can wives show that they appreciate what you do as a man?
Oh, you lead off, man.
How can we show appreciation, Daniel?
I'm easy. I'm not really picky
Talk
or
to the
anything
mic.
like that. We kind of discussed this earlier. You know, if I come home and if anyone knows me, that they know that I'm all about Under Armour. If I come home and there's a new
You got
piece
on
of
Under Armour today. Yeah. We need to make you
so if I come home and there's a piece of Under Armour garment on the bed, that's just solidifies everything that I do.
All right,
that's awesome.
I know that she really appreciates what I do. And it really helps her out. Helps her with just about all the crazy ideas that she come up with sometimes, you know.
So just a simple getting you something that you really like shows that you're okay. Right. Brother Thomas, how can your wife show that she appreciates you?
Well, I would say that my wife, she already shows me in a multitude of ways because this is our 7th year marriage, and
she gonna correct
we're
you.
going into 8. We've been married 7.
She's like, get it straight. You're going into 8. 8 years.
These kids.
Acknowledge my hard work and pain.
Out of the 7 that we've been married, I would say roughly 6. My wife has been homemaker. Would you say 6? Because the daycare is going on 2. So out of 6 years, she hasn't necessarily had to work outside of the house. So those meals that were being cooked every day, that was a showing of appreciation because love itself has to go into what is being prepared. And then the way that my children have been nurtured, you know, by Allah's permission, we are always being complimented on our children, their manners, the way that they are able to function in
witness to that.
society.